There is a quiet moment that many visitors to Scandinavia remember long after they return home. It is not the first glimpse of a fjord or the sound of snow underfoot, but something smaller and stranger. You step out into the winter evening, the sky already dark in the late afternoon, the air sharp on your face. As you walk through the streets, you notice the houses, not the roofs, not the colors, but the windows. They are open, not physically, but visually. Curtains drawn back, blinds rolled up, living rooms on full display to the night. A dining table lit by a single warm lamp, a bookshelf, a plant, a child's drawing taped to the glass. People sitting at the table, drinking coffee, reading, talking, fully visible from the street, as if the wall of the home is half transparent. If you come from a place where evenings mean pulling the curtains shut, locking the world out, this can feel almost shocking. Shouldn't they be worried about privacy, about safety, about being watched? But in Scandinavia, the open evening window is rarely a mistake. It is a habit, a choice, in some places almost an unspoken rule. So in this film, the question is simple. Why do curtains stay open at night in Scandinavia? The answers are less simple. They live in the darkness of winter and the hunger for light, in the deep rural past and in the modern welfare state, and perhaps most of all, in the complex feeling of wanting to be seen but not disturbed. As we walk through this, keep one image in mind: a single window on a cold night glowing softly over the snow. Someone is inside, going about an ordinary evening. You are outside, anonymous in the dark. Between you is only a thin layer of glass and a shared understanding.
To understand why curtains stay open, it helps to begin with the darkness itself. In much of Scandinavia, winter days are short. In the north, the sun barely rises above the horizon for weeks. Even in the southern cities, there can be only a few hours of weak daylight before the blue dusk returns. For generations, life here has meant learning how to live with a long, slow night that seems to wrap around the year. In that landscape, light is not decoration, it is survival for the mood, a defense against the heaviness that creeps in when the world outside the window is nothing but black. The soft bulb over the kitchen table, the candle on the windowsill, the paper star hanging in Advent season, these are not simply pretty, they are small acts of resistance. When the winter is that long, people do not want to hide what little light they have. Drawing thick curtains over the window can feel like closing the last connection to whatever faint glow remains beyond the glass. Instead, the lit interior becomes part of the shared environment. Each home is like a lantern, contributing its square of warmth to the street. There is also a practical side. In the dark months, the reflected light from outside helps make the room feel less like a box and more like part of a larger, if invisible, landscape. Lamplight reaching the snow or the wet pavement comes back into the room. Curtains would only absorb it. Leaving them open lets the light breathe. This approach to light forms a quiet contract with the dark. The night will come early and it will stay. In return, people will not surrender their small human glow. They will place it beside the glass, where the darkness can see it, and where strangers can see it too. It is as if the region collectively decided that light should not be hidden away, but offered outward. Of course, light could still be offered with closed curtains. Lamps shine either way. But here, light is more than illumination. It is a way of making life visible, of saying, we are here, we are living our ordinary evenings, the world has not swallowed us. In a place where winter sometimes whispers that nothing moves, the open window quietly disagrees.
While the hunger for light is one part of the story, history adds another layer. Before Scandinavian cities were built of glass and steel, the region was a patchwork of small villages and scattered farms. Neighbors were few, distances long, and darkness even deeper without the halo of modern streetlights. In that world, seeing another human light in the distance carried a special weight. Imagine a winter's night 2 centuries ago, when snow covered the fields and the wind carried sound far. A lamp burning in the window of a farmhouse was not a sign of carelessness. It was a sign that the house was awake, that the family was safe, that there was life amid the emptiness. Travelers and neighbors could orient themselves by these lights, knowing who was home, who might help if something went wrong. In some coastal communities, lights in windows also had a more literal guiding role. They helped those returning from sea to find their way. A cluster of lamps along the shoreline marked the presence of a harbor, a village, a place where warmth waited. Darkness here was not just psychological, it was physical risk. Light was a promise extended across the cold. As societies modernized, electric light replaced oil lamps and candles, but the habit of making home life visible through the window did not vanish. It simply changed its meaning. It moved from being a survival signal to being a sign of normalcy and trust. The open window said, "Nothing dangerous is happening here. This is a household like any other." Rural Protestant culture also played its part. In many Lutheran communities, there was an expectation of modesty and honesty. One did not flaunt wealth or drama. A tidy, visible living room could be read as proof that there was nothing to hide. Rumors find less soil in a place where the evening life of a family is, in a sense, publicly legible. Of course, not every village followed the same norms, and not every family embraced that visibility. But across time, the image of the lit window as a sign of trustworthy, normal life settled deep into the shared imagination. Even now in suburbs built long after the age of horses and oil lamps, the memory of those long sightlines remains. The habit of leaving curtains open feels natural, even when the original reasons have faded. Light and history explain part of the open curtain, but not the whole. There is also the special way Scandinavians handle the balance between trust and distance. These societies are often described as high trust. People tend to believe that others, including strangers, will follow the rules, respect common spaces, and not cause harm. At the same time, there is a strong respect for personal boundaries and privacy. This combination creates a subtle paradox. On one hand, homes can be visually open because there is little expectation that passers-by will behave badly. Burglary rates exist, of course, but the average person does not walk down the street thinking constantly about crime. The lit room is not experienced as an invitation to trouble, but as something neutral, almost invisible to the moral imagination. On the other hand, although the room is visible, the people inside are not necessarily socially available. The open curtain does not mean, "Look at us," any more than a park bench means, "Join our conversation." The unspoken rule is that one may glance but not linger. You acknowledge the scene with a quick look, then drop your eyes, allowing the occupants to remain undisturbed in their bubble. This unspoken rule is strong. Children grow up learning it without words. They look into windows and are told gently not to stare. They sense that there is something slightly impolite about pressing their nose to the glass of someone else's life, even when that glass is right there. The window is transparent, but socially it behaves almost like a wall. Part of this comes from the Nordic idea of privacy as space, not only as secrecy. To respect someone's privacy is to give them room. A living room bathed in light can still be private if everyone agrees not to intrude, physically or with too much gaze. The same logic appears on buses and trains. People sit close, but conversation is minimal. Presence does not equal invitation. Because of this, homeowners do not feel compelled to pull the curtains at night. They trust that the passerby understands the rules. The passerby, in turn, trusts that the homeowner is not secretly expecting total invisibility. Both sides share a script. You see that I am here, and I see that you are there. We will let each other be. Seen from the outside, it can feel like a contradiction. Openness without exposure, visibility without contact. Inside the culture, it feels like a comfortable equilibrium. The open curtain is not a cry for attention. It is a quiet statement that being visible does not necessarily mean being vulnerable.
Beneath these social patterns lies an older spiritual and cultural layer. For centuries, Lutheran Christianity shaped life in Scandinavia, blending with local customs and the rhythms of the northern year. While today many people describe themselves as secular, traces of that religious heritage remain in rituals, holidays, and even in how light is used in the home. Consider the Advent star in the window, common in December throughout Sweden and Norway. It is both a decorative object and a symbol, pointing toward the biblical star that guided travelers in the night. Hung in the window, it becomes a public sign of a private hope. You do not keep the star hidden in the center of the room. You let it face the street. Candles and lamps playing against darkness have long carried spiritual connotations. The small, steady light of faith, the idea of warmth in a cold world. Leaving the curtains open lets that symbolic language speak outward. The message is not preached aloud, but it is there in the way houses collectively refuse to sink entirely into blackness. There is also a moral dimension rooted in the past. In some communities, being transparent in one's life was linked to integrity. A household in which nothing scandalous occurred had nothing to conceal. Gossip loses power when daily life is, at least in outline, fully exposed to the casual glance. Of course, true privacy still existed behind bedroom doors and in inner rooms, but the main living space was not hidden like a treasure. Over time, this religious and moral framework softened into something more aesthetic and psychological. The glowing window became less about signaling virtue and more about creating beauty in the winter landscape. Yet the old associations did not completely vanish. For some older generations, a heavily curtained house can still feel slightly suspicious, as if someone is hiding from the community. Even for those who never think about theology, the habit of showing the living space to the night retains an almost liturgical rhythm. Each evening, lamps are turned on, candles are lit, and the performance of light begins again. It is repetitive, modest, and deeply physical.
In this way, the open curtain is not only about the outside world looking in, but about the household placing itself in a larger, shared pattern that stretches back through time. Modern Scandinavian design, with its emphasis on clean lines, natural materials, and uncluttered spaces, adds yet another layer to this custom. When people take pride in their living rooms as carefully crafted environments, they are less inclined to hide them away behind heavy fabric. The room is meant to be light, airy, and visually open. Thick curtains would fight against that philosophy. Many homes rely on large windows to bring in the limited daylight and to create a feeling of connection with nature, whether that nature is a forest, a courtyard, or simply the changing sky. These windows are often left unadorned or covered with minimal textiles. During the day, this maximizes light. In the evening, it reveals the interior like a softly lit stage. There is a gentle pleasure in this stage, though it is rarely admitted openly. People say they do not care if anyone sees, that the open curtain is simply practical. Yet there is often a subtle satisfaction in imagining the outside perspective, the warm, tidy room glowing in the blue hour, the candle on the table, the slow movement of daily life. It is not pride in luxury, but pride in atmosphere. Importantly, the kind of visibility on offer is carefully curated. The rooms most exposed are usually living rooms and kitchens, the social spaces where the family appears at its most presentable. More intimate rooms, like bedrooms and bathrooms, almost always have curtains or blinds drawn. The home offers a face to the street, but keeps its deeper layers protected. This division mirrors the Scandinavian approach to the self. There is a public self, polite, calm, competent, reserved, and there is a more private self, revealed only to close friends and family. The living room window shows the public self of the household, reading, eating, sitting together in comfortable silence. It does not show the arguments in the kitchen corner, the tears in the bedroom, or the untidy storage room behind a closed door. The aesthetic quality of the glowing window has also been absorbed into tourism and lifestyle imagery. Photographs of Scandinavian towns often linger on rows of lit windows reflecting in water or against snow. Magazines and advertisements reproduce this feeling, teaching people to see their own evening rituals as part of a larger beauty. Once a habit becomes recognized as beautiful, it is more likely to be maintained.
For visitors from countries where crime or insecurity are more present in everyday thought, the open curtain can almost look naive. Surely it invites trouble. Surely it makes it easy for someone to observe routines, possessions, vulnerabilities. And yet, in much of Scandinavia, the feeling of physical safety at home is strong. This does not mean that crime is absent, but that the general expectation is one of order and predictability. Neighbors may not speak often, but they pay attention. Unfamiliar behavior on the street stands out. In this way, open windows can even contribute to a subtle form of community surveillance, not the harsh, suspicious gaze of a watchtower, but the simple awareness that homes and streets are visually intertwined. The presence of good insulation and strong, modern windows also changes the emotional equation. The glass is thick, the frames solid. Voices do not easily carry through. Someone outside can see the lamp above the dining table, but not hear the conversation, can see movement, but not read lips. The physical barrier feels reliable. Visibility does not automatically mean exposure.
urban planning plays a role as well. Many residential streets are relatively quiet, with limited through traffic. People walking past your window are likely to be neighbors or delivery workers, not crowds of unknown passers-by. Over time, familiarity softens fear. You may not know the name of each person you see, but you recognize their outline, their dog, their bicycle. In apartment blocks, the logic shifts slightly. Higher floors offer more natural privacy. Ground floor residents sometimes use lighter curtains or sheer textiles that allow light through while softening the view. But even here, the tendency to avoid complete visual isolation remains strong. A fully closed dark window can feel more unsettling than a gently lit one. The quiet confidence behind this habit is rooted in the broader structure of society. Social safety nets, strong institutions, relatively low levels of social inequality compared to many places. When people feel that the world around them is, on balance, stable and fair, they are less inclined to fortify their private spaces with heavy barriers. The open curtain becomes a small expression of trust in the surrounding world. Beyond history, religion, design, and safety, there is a more intimate psychological dimension to living with open curtains. It touches the way people think about themselves in relation to the community and about the loneliness that can accompany long winters. In many Nordic countries, social life is often structured around a few close relationships rather than a wide circle of casual friends. It can take time to be invited into someone's home, and once inside, the atmosphere is usually relaxed but reserved. Outside of these circles, people move past each other with politeness but little small talk. For newcomers, this can feel isolating. In such a world, the glowing window creates a peculiar kind of comfort. Walking alone through the evening, you see lives unfolding behind glass, a person watering plants, a couple setting plates on the table, someone leaning over a jigsaw puzzle, another dozing in a chair. You are not part of these scenes, but they reassure you that life is happening around you, quietly, in parallel. Psychologists sometimes speak of social presence, the sense that other humans are nearby, even if you are not interacting with them. The open window offers a gentle dose of this presence. You are alone, but not completely. There are other rooms of warmth within sight. Your solitude is set within a larger field of quietly occupied spaces. For the people inside, there is also an effect. Knowing that the room is in principle visible to the street might subtly encourage certain behaviors, tidying the space, lighting a candle, sitting together rather than scattering to separate corners. The imagined gaze from outside, even if faint, can help shape a sense of order and dignity in everyday life. This is not the harsh gaze of surveillance, but something more like the awareness that you share a stage with many others, all performing the same simple play, making dinner, drinking tea, turning lamps on and off. The performance is not for applause, but for coherence. It helps stitch individual evenings into a collective fabric. At the same time, the open curtain cannot fully erase feelings of isolation. A town full of visible living rooms can still hold people who feel deeply alone inside them. The habit of not intruding means that someone sitting by a lit window may be silently wishing for company that never comes. The glow is real, but it does not automatically translate to connection. In this sense, the open curtain is both comforting and slightly poignant.
It reveals that people live near one another without necessarily sharing their inner worlds. It makes visible the fact that community can exist as a pattern of lights rather than a network of conversations. By now, the original question, why curtains stay open at night in Scandinavia, may feel both answered and still a little mysterious. That is often how it goes with customs that grow from many roots at once. There is no single origin story, no law written centuries ago. There is only a long, quiet accumulation of habits shaped by landscape, faith, design, trust, and the human need for light. In the depth of winter, when the sky turns dark early and the streets fall silent, the open window is first of all a response to the physical reality of the north. Light is scarce. People do not wish to hide it. They pour it toward the glass and let it spill into the night. Each room becomes a small resistance to the season's heaviness. History sits behind this. The rural houses that once used lamplight as a sign of safety, the coastal villages where light guided travelers home, the Protestant idea that honest life does not need thick curtains. These old meanings drift beneath the surface of modern life, rarely mentioned, but still present in the way older generations feel about a neat, visible living room. Trust and distance add their own pattern. In a society where people generally expect others to behave decently, there is less need to fortify the home against imagined threats. At the same time, strong norms about not staring or intruding allow visibility without exposure. The window is open, but the social wall still stands. Then come aesthetics and design, the delight in bright, uncluttered spaces, the pride in a lamp placed just so, the joy of seeing one's own living room become part of the evening streetscape. Modern images of hygge and koselig have taken this habit and wrapped it in a language of coziness and lifestyle, but the core feeling is older and simpler, a room glowing gently in the dark. Finally, there is the quiet psychology of being half seen. For the walker outside, rows of lit windows soften the loneliness of long nights. For the person inside, the awareness of that outside world can bring a slight sense of connection, a reminder that one's evening is part of a larger pattern of lives unfolding at the same time. The open curtain becomes a meeting point between solitude and community without requiring a single word to be spoken. Of course, not every Scandinavian household follows this custom. Blackout blinds, thick curtains, and closed shutters exist here too, especially in modern apartments or in bright summer months when the sun never truly sets. Cities are changing, and so are habits. Yet the image persists. In countless towns across the region, there will always be some windows left uncovered, some rooms offered to the night as small glowing squares. If you ever find yourself walking through such a street on a winter evening, notice what happens inside you. Do you feel like an intruder or like a quiet guest of the neighborhood's shared light? Do you feel more alone or less? Somewhere behind one of those panes of glass, someone may be wondering the same thing about you, glimpsed for a moment as a passing silhouette against the snow. Perhaps that is the deepest answer to the question. Curtains stay open at night in Scandinavia because, on some level, people here have learned to live with the idea that we are always slightly visible to one another, never fully together, never fully hidden, but sharing the long winter by exchanging small tokens of light. The windows become like little invitations, not to come in, but to walk on with the comfort of knowing that in the darkness other human evenings are glowing alongside your own. And when you return home, wherever home may be, and reach for your own curtains as night falls, you may pause for a moment.
You may wonder what it would feel like to leave them open, to let your own lamp join that invisible constellation of rooms. Whether you close them or not, the question itself is a small window, a way of looking differently at the thin line between your inner life and the world outside.